Hi, this is Jason Coburn, and I was asked to deliver a seminar on cyber risks, cyber issues. We wanted to video it, but we weren't able to do that live, so we videoed it, and we're going to give you 55 minutes of good quality advice, ranging from what emails you shouldn't be sending to what you can do to prevent people that are working with you or for you receiving emails and clicking on things that they probably don't want to. We'd love you to ask any questions by email, so there is an email address coming up here and also on the last slide, and we hope that you get everything that you need from this, but please feel free to ask us questions, and also don't forget you can unsubscribe at any time.
Makes sense. So like me, you probably get contacted by people daily asking to connect. We'll talk about the soft side of this later, but the hard side of this is we don't know who these people are, okay? And we could find that one of them isn't who they say they are. And we might accept their connection because we might think that them expanding their network and including us is a good idea. We might think it's a decent thing to do, but we just don't know who they are. And you can go on and say, who do they know that I already know? But if they've gone out and marketed to everyone, they might well be connected to someone you know. And I sometimes have my clients call me and say, I got one recently, my client say, someone on LinkedIn has contacted me to do a bit of consultancy, and they say that they're connected to you. And then I went on there, and they weren't actually connected to me, but we're in the same group. But I didn't know them. So you have to be careful who you connect with. Now, why these examples are interesting is, most of them say, okay, he was quite honest, you want to generate income through LinkedIn, but this one was honest, but others were just working around why they want to connect. So they're saying to me, I want to connect, I just want to expand my network. But the challenge is, about 2 days later, if I do connect, I suddenly start getting spammed. And what I've noticed lately is the spam is coming into my inbox. So people connect with you on LinkedIn, but then they spam you incessantly in your inbox. The challenge we have with that, if someone sends me a message saying, I just want to connect to expand my network, and then they start spamming me, then I'm probably never going to do business with them because their opening gambit wasn't exactly the truth. But more important, they're breaching all the rules. And they don't know they're breaching the rules. And by breaching the rules, they're putting their business in danger. So if I pick them as a supplier and then their business goes down, that's my responsibility as well. So 3 key things I want you to remember by the end of today. I've gone straight into LinkedIn. Okay? These people could be good or bad, but the 3 things I want you to remember. Okay? If you forget everything else, 3 things that do end this, I want you to remember. 1, you should be really careful who you are connecting with, and that's clients, contacts, and suppliers, because we're all linked these days once we start communicating with each other. 2, make sure that you have some credibility checks around the people that you're going to work with. To the nth degree, we as a regulated business have to do something called sanctions checks. I'm not sure every business in the UK has to do them, but by the end of this, you'll know a very good reason why every business in the UK should be checking different people that they're working with, especially in terms of sanctions. Okay. And the third thing to remember is, it is up to you. Whilst we are all mutually connected these days through Wi-Fi and other marvellous things, it's up to you whether you connect in the first place. So one of the biggest challenges in business is employees and giving them all the information they need not to make silly mistakes and click the wrong button. So that is up to the business how well it trains its staff. Because if they really want to stop stuff getting in, then they can train their people to a higher degree than their competitors. And then they've got an extra level of resilience. So why is this a problem? Imagine you had connected to these people and wanted to be your friend. Well, what could happen next? This. So, same area, this is LinkedIn, it's still LinkedIn. This is a connection of mine. And I get a lovely message. You can see that we've already started communicating at the top, because the last message ended, Jason, thanks, and I get this message. It says, hi, I shared a project proposal that could use your input on, kindly discuss, blah, blah, blah. And I was out and about when I got it, and I thought, oh, really interesting. It's Ian, his name is, by the way. Cheers, Ian. Blotted him out, so not to put any form of colouring on what's happened here. And I phoned him. I'm a phone person. I'm not necessarily an email person, I'm a phone person. So I put it up, put the phones up, and then I phoned him. Didn't get through, so I phoned him a couple of days later, and I'm interested in leads. This is a lead theory project. We work together on culture. This guy is very well regarded in the diversity field. So when he sends me a tender, it's not a surprise. But by the time I did get through to him, probably 3 days later, he said his LinkedIn account had been hacked, and anyone who clicked on that now had a virus. And it was a new virus. It wasn't one that's picked up by the packages. So that's why it's so important to be very careful about who you let in. Because although they might be just using the same formula as everyone else, they might have an ulterior motive to getting in. So this is probably what happened to my contact. He probably accepted the message from someone in the past. That person's then in on his system somehow. Maybe he looked at a PDF they sent him and put some virus or some malware on his system, which allowed them to send everyone in his LinkedIn box the virus. So that's how easy it is. So vigilance is pretty key. Yes, thank you.
How do you pick up on that though? Because if you've got a contact that you've known previously, and they send you a LinkedIn request.
Okay. So there's lots of big words for it. We call it double checking. So the fact I phoned him means we're switching platforms. So the insurers call it multi-factor verification. So you use it on your email when you log in onto their computer. You then go to your phone for a code. But we feel when you're in communications with people, if you get an email, so the thing that there was a slight problem with this, very slight one. Does anyone see what the problem in this message is? Anything in there that you see that you think is slightly odd? There's that. Shared something
Put
about
CEO if you know.
You put the CEO. He is a CEO. And I do know him. Yeah. So it's not that.
Your name. So
Bang, bang. One thing. So you're looking for tiny things when you receive this stuff.
you can get that, Jason. Could you just
Sorry, have a seat, sir. He basically said.
your name?
So up here, it's Jason Thanks, so he's a name person. He's one of these people who always name checks you. And then the next thing he's done is gone, hi.
Yeah.
Which then, when I did, so I didn't actually notice that. I was just busy, so I just put the thumbs up. I knew to return to it later. But when I did return to it, when he wasn't answering my phone, I didn't get desperate and look at the presentation. I just thought I'll wait till he calls back. But then when I looked at that, hi, I shared project. And it's good English, it's just not him. But we have to look closely at these things before we can detect them. And this is it's training. It's training. So to an untrained eye, and as he said, some people did click on it, they were untrained. Therefore they got caught out. So that's why. I mean, just go on, you go first.
So I think the explanation is because he's just sending out this, that can be sent out to 50 to 1,000 people, and they can't actually specify the individual name. So,
Yes, but this is a cheap criminal.
yeah.
A expensive criminal would have your name in there.
And
But there is a code.
Also the PDF name is just dodgy as well.
Well, it doesn't even, to me, it doesn't look like a real PDF. It's slightly different to, it just doesn't look exactly the same as what I'm used to. It's just slightly different. But these people are clever. So there is actually code that would have put my name at the beginning of that if this criminal had paid a little bit more on the dark web for that code. Fortunately, he didn't.
We don't want to be ripped off like cheap criminals, do we?
Decent, right?
Decent criminals at least.
At least criminals with morals. Anyway, does anyone know? I mean, I probably know what the answer is. Does anyone know someone who would have just clicked on that?
I know someone the other day who
Okay.
they sent an invoice to a client. The email got hacked, and then they changed the PDF to another bank details, and they even corresponded with
So this is
the client, and they end up paying.
So this is
the wrong account.
This is what we call an extra special. So this is where not only have they, that's like me sending you an invoice, and my invoice has got my company name and my bank details on.
Yeah.
And you phoned me to say, is this your invoice? And I said, yes. But what wasn't said was, are these your bank details? Because they would have been different. So they intercepted the invoice, the PDF. They did nothing to it apart from change the bank details. And then they then respond as if they're you, saying, have you paid it yet? Have you paid it yet? So we'll talk about another one later, which is very similar. And the problem with malware is you don't know you've got it. It doesn't announce itself. You know you've got it later. So you should keep, but you're not expected to know either, okay? People who look in the risk management field, they don't expect people like me to know when I've got malware. They don't expect us to know. But there are easy ways of checking. So all I would say for that stuff is, training is just as important as the software patches and the security that you have on there. Without the training, if you've got more than one person in your business, without the training, the software patches and the virus protection is useless. Sorry, you have a question?
You said something about library with telephone numbers on their LinkedIn. You said something like you can actually find their telephone numbers.
What I mean is, see, he hasn't put
Yeah.
Jason here.
Yeah.
There is code available
Yeah.
where that message could have actually had my name in it. It could have. Okay. So, these are the three things. Keep remembering these. If in a year's time if you remember nothing else, remember this. Your reputation, okay? It's your reputation. So, when things go wrong, people might forgive you for it. You say, sorry, I got hacked. But if the story then comes out later that you hadn't invested in training, or you couldn't be bothered with the security you needed on your systems, or you treated staff so badly that they ran off with data, people don't forgive the reputation. You can come back from it, but reputation is almost immediately tarnished. So when I hear about one of the suppliers I deal with insurers a lot, when they were bothered to keep their data safe, so their salesman could go to a new company and take it with him, I'm loyal. Because that could be people I've introduced to them, and they're letting that data go to other companies and competitors, possibly. So I don't like it, and I'm sure we're all the same. When someone we're working with has an issue, it does have an effect. And the worse the issue is, the worse it is. I mean, what I mean is, if you haven't done anything to try and prevent issues, then people don't look for it. Unknown connections, it's units at risk. Okay, so just be really careful. And penalties have been charged for non-compliant marketing. So this is something that's escalated recently. This is following GDPR. Most of the people who are being fined by the ICO at the moment, fined, penalised, we'll clarify that in a bit, it's marketing. Now some of them are just absolutely outrageous. So this lot, twice, they simply ignored all the rules and just emailed people, the same as they have been doing. So they've been fined twice, so they haven't learned their lesson. But I think they must be one of these companies that make so much money out of it, the fine dwarfs the income, so they'll probably keep going. But monetary penalties, enforcement notices, you can go on this every day and have a look, or every week and just see what's going on out there. But I promise you, most of them are marketing. So, marketing. Okay? But one of them on here is pretty interesting. It's so easy to infringe. Telephone preference service. Everyone know what that is? So some companies are still phoning people just by getting their number from a database and not checking that they're on a telephone preference service. And people have been fined for data breaches because their clients are reporting them to the telephone preference service, and the telephone preference service is just going to the ICO and saying, we've got a hotline for you. These people have run 3 people without checking that they're on the list, and therefore they've breached the Act, and they're what we call strict liability. If you breach it, you're liable. There's no, oh, sorry, I breached it. And the one that's insidious, this is the thing that can get companies in the end, is SARs. Anyone know what SAR is in terms of data? There you go, thank you. Subject access request. So subject access request is going to become something we all know about in the future. At the moment, the Metropolitan Police are the people who have received the enforcement notice. And this highlights something I think is going to become more prevalent in the future, which is vindictive cases. So the people that have gone to the police and said, we sent you a request for the data, the personal data you hold on us, and you haven't responded within the predetermined timeline, they're probably solicitors or criminals trying to fudge their case. So it's a vindictive request. They're saying to the police, you have to send us every bit of personal information you hold on your file. Well, of course the police don't. Because some of the personal information they hold on the file is towards the case they're going to bring against this individual. So this is a vindictive way of using data. And this is currently being used by the cleverest people in the land, the solicitors, the most aggressive people in the land, the solicitors, in order to drive a wedge in cases. The solicitors are using it to try and get criminals off. But this is what we call a vindictive approach. So if there's a company who behaves badly enough, if enough of its employees can do it, annoyed employees, or enough of its annoyed staff, can set them in a world of pain by just sending in loads of subject access requests. That's going to become the preserve of what we call class actions in the future. There'll be people sending in subject action requests backed by a big solicitors group that said, look, we'll do it on the same day. And when they don't respond in time, they've got another wedge for their class action. They're saying, we're going to prosecute these people because we're taking action against them because they didn't keep our data safe, but we're also taking action against them because they didn't meet the SAR request. And they can call the ICO in to assist them with the action. So it's a vindictive approach, but it's out there. Speaking of processes and procedures, subject access request, SARs, you'll hear about more in the future. Who here has done a DPIA? Exactly. So this is one of the key components of the GDPR. And this is why GDPR hasn't yet embedded, because they made such a big noise about it and so many people were piling in. The main tenets of it have been forgotten. So the main tenet is to make sure everyone's data is treated as they would like it to be treated. And a DPIA is a data protection impact assessment. We know hardly anyone's done that. I know. We work with managed service providers or IT companies. Their biggest concern, something gets into their system and it goes to all their clients, all their 100 clients, and affects all their data. So we say, okay, so how many records do you hold? They don't really know. If you've done a data protection impact assessment, you probably would. Then I say to them, well, your clients have supposed to have done this. Why don't you ask them? Because we need to know the aggregated amount of data that you hold, which is all your clients. And it turns out none of the clients have done data protection impact assessments. So businesses aren't necessarily catching up, but we're all linked to each other. So if my supplier, one of my key suppliers, hasn't done this, that can affect me. If I'm phoning them saying, you were supposed to visit this client's house yesterday to fix the drains, and they're running around trying to work out how to fix their minor breach, by the way, they clicked on that email on LinkedIn and got something on their system, then that's frustrating. So remember I said earlier, who you connect to. Connection is not just who we invite to LinkedIn, who invites us, it's which businesses are you connecting with, your suppliers. So, one really important takeaway for you guys that not a lot of people know, if you have done your data protection impact assessment and you know how many data records you have, where they are they secure, and how many of them hold personal identifiable information. Insurance companies love it, because then they can measure the risk. They can say, look, they've got 100,000 records, 10,000 of them are US citizens that hold their US citizens' healthcare records. They're the highest risk in the world, in theory, but they've kept them in a place that's so secure it's like Fort Knox. So they've turned a high risk into a low risk. We like these people. We can also work out that if those people are affected, it's going to cost us this much to deal with them. And we also know if the 100,000 people affected, it costs us between £10 and £110 to fix any breach. So we can add that up and we know how much insurance they should have. So people that have done these assessments, it engage with data and GDPR and stuff like that, they have a much easier ride when they're looking to protect the business because they've already taken some steps. That's recognised by the people trying to help them. So key thing, if you can work out how many data records you are, you're a much better risk to anyone because you know what you've got. A lot of people don't know what they've got. Making sense so far? Any queries? Okay. Where are we? Oh, back in. So, what does insurance do? Because we talked about the risks. I'm going to whiz through this because cyber insurance is a total new thing for most people. And how does it protect business? Because people are used to thinking, well, if my house burns down and it costs $280,000 to rebuild, it'd be nice for the insurance company to give a cheque to a builder, and I just have to stand around and make sure everything's built correctly. But what I actually do now is services. So I'm not going to labour the point, but it's immediate assistance, because most people, when they get a breach, they panic. The first thing, they don't know whether to notify or not. So it's assistance in, okay, do you need to notify? Do you not need to notify? Let's not notify 100,000 people if we only need to notify 100 a day, for example. Call centre. So if there has been a breach, and I'm not saying these things are going to happen to you, but they happen generally out there. If there is a breach, people normally phone in and saying, I've heard you've got a problem. What's happening to my data? What do I need to do? Have I been compromised? So the insurers basically appoint a call centre to take all the calls so that the business can get on with what it normally does, because I think most people are quite busy anyway, so they want to just get on with it. Credit monitoring, so PII, personal information. When Morrison's had a breach, which we'll return to, their data was posted on the dark web, and it was bank details and stuff. So some people actually had their identity stolen. This is in the UK, and their credit cards compromised, mortgage payments missed, etc. So they're now having Morrison's are having to pay for their credit monitoring for 12 to 24 month period to make sure that Experian are looking after them and notify them if something odd happens in their account. So insurers do that. Solicitors help check whether you need to refer it to the ICO or not. They can be a great help, especially if they're on tap. And PR, getting the right message out. I knew when Dido Harding of TalkTalk appeared on News at 10, 5 to 6 years ago, when she appeared on there, as soon as she said the first sentence, I knew she didn't have any insurance. She said totally the wrong thing. She basically made themselves look silly. She couldn't answer any of the questions posed. She didn't have, it was a bit like, I didn't even watch it, but apparently there was a car crash when Prince Andrew was on telly the other day. And everyone was saying, why didn't they get PR? Why didn't they get PR? What's because it's hard to give a good message when things are going on. So the insurers throw PR at it. They pay other people's damages, because other people might say, you caused me a problem and I lost loads of data. But most importantly, this is the one that really gets me. Most businesses have been banging on about being liable. Oh, what happens if data gets stolen? Yeah, people might sue you, but not if they won't sue you if they think you've done everything you could and you've got attacked by a criminal. But what about your own losses? People forget about their own losses. So we'll talk about that a bit. But I bet it don't be Maersk. Maersk. Who knows Maersk, the shipping company? Has anyone heard what happened to them? Anyone heard that? So Maersk, sometimes when you're on a motorway, you'll see a big shipping container have Maersk on the side. I think they're Danish, but they're Scandinavian of some sort. They got targeted. So 99.99% of all issues are random. It's just the stuff these big criminal gangs have already slung out there on the internet, and sometimes we get caught up in it. The NHS got caught up because they had outdated systems. I spoke to a guy yesterday who said, I'm buying a new computer because they're not supporting Windows. No, there's another one. What's it called? Windows something anymore. Vista. And I thought, you've still got a Vista computer. But I communicate with him. He's got no virus protection. It's an unsupported program. And yet he's sending me emails. So it's lucky I know what I'm doing, really. Lucky I know what to look out for. And this is what we face. So, Maersk, they got targeted, a criminal enterprise. And be aware that most of this stuff's criminal. Criminal enterprise basically put something on their systems that meant they couldn't see where their containers were, which for a shipping company, pretty bad. But they worked out somehow that the organisation behind it were criminal. And they made a moral decision that they weren't going to pay the ransom, which was, I think, £750,000. Moral decision. Not paying the ransom. At that point, I knew I hadn't bothered buying insurance. I knew straight away. Because when people start making mistakes, I realised they haven't had the support they could have done with. So their moral decision was, we're not paying a ransom, we don't believe it's in the public interest. I don't believe in paying ransom either, but I will if I have to. And they said, we'll fix it all ourselves. I think they're 4.5 million in so far, and they managed to get everything back up and running, but they think they've still got about 8 million to spend. So instead of paying 750,000, they ended up paying millions and millions and millions. There are good reasons why you shouldn't pay ransom, which I'll get on to, but I don't think we should be making the choice. I would like someone to assist me with that choice and start looking into these other people and seeing what they're about, rather than me trying to work it out myself. That is a great deal of support. If someone already knows who these ransom people are, I would want to lean on them. So if someone ever has a go at me and says, you shouldn't have paid that, that wasn't in the public interest, I can say, I paid it because of these reasons. So don't be mad. Don't think, I'm going to take the moral high ground here with a criminal empire who have locked my data. Again, there are good reasons not to pay ransoms, only one as far as I'm concerned, so I'll get to that for you. You'll notice there's an obvious mistake in there. So, I'm going to talk through some of the risks if I can get this thing to work. We talked about the CEO sent me an email and I didn't click on it. This is about someone who did click on something. So it was quite simple. It was a Friday afternoon. CEO sent an email to her finance lady saying, pay this invoice. There was a couple of exchanges. The first one was, I'm not in the office, I haven't got the login thing for the bank. So the CEO emailed her back, said, go and get it, go home and do it. I need this paid within the next hour or so. So she went home, logged in, and made the payment. And she shouldn't have really. That was on a Friday. Over the weekend, she started thinking about it. For some reason, she realised there'd been an issue, so we got the call. And I said, okay, cool. You are actually insured for this thing. This is the sort of thing you asked me to protect. They have client money in their bank account, so that's a good reason why they called us in the first place. We protected that. Monday morning comes. I've told her everything we need to do. She says she's got in touch with the bank. The bank had been a little bit responsive, and at 10 to 9 on Monday morning, they got a letter from the bank saying, yeah, we're doing everything we can to stop the payment. At the same time, they also found a banking charter online, which I'll show you a picture of soon. Banking charter says, if you get caught out by a push payment, which is what this was, you've been pushed to put payment into the wrong account, the bank will give you the money back. Funny enough, they've been lying again. So we had this thing where we knew the client was insured, and we were saying, no, just use your insurance. So no, we want the bank to pay us back because we've got in touch with them before the money's gone, so we should be able to stop it. But by 11 o'clock that morning, it became clear that the bank had sent the money and it was gone. Off into an account that couldn't be traced and was closed about 5 seconds after the money went. So a lot of criminals use lots of online banking like PayPal. It's harder to track and trace. So the insurer paid them. They took off £2,500 though, because they don't pay every part of the loss, otherwise everyone will be claiming every day. But the challenge that I feel that business has is there's a bit of suspicion between the finance person who made the payment and the director. Because the director saying, how could they be so stupid? It was obvious it wasn't from me. Now, it wasn't obvious, they were good. It actually said the full email address of the person who purported to have sent it. If you'd right-clicked on it and looked at the property, you'd have seen it was from someone totally different. And the person had been trained to do the right-click, for some reason didn't. And her excuse was, well, you were rushing me. I wasn't even at work that day. So there's suspicion now between the two. Now, I can see how that's happened. I don't like it, but I can see how that's happened. And this is happening. This is happening. It's causing problems. People are now suspecting it. So the lending code, has anyone heard about this? If your bank written to you about the lending code and what they're going to No one's seen it? Okay, so what they say is that they're going to help, but everyone I know that's asked for help. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. A vintage motor parts company got something on their system, and these are the things that happened to them. They couldn't work as they wanted to. That was the main problem. They just wanted to sell motor parts. That's what they were there to do. But their website wasn't on the internet readily available for people who were there to find them as a new customer. Existing customers going back couldn't get online, couldn't order the parts they wanted, and couldn't pay for them. So that just caused a load of issues. Another one, this one is not something you placed on systems. This is software. Software doesn't always work. This is a cloud provider. And this guy had to find these files because according to his membership of the Royal Institute of British Architects, you have to have your client's files available. And even if you close down, you have to make sure those files are still available for your clients. Makes sense, doesn't it? And also you should keep a records for a certain number of years. I think it's a good 6 after you finish with a client. So the client comes back and says, I need some more work done on the house. He goes, yep, I'll go to the plans, where are the plans? They're not there, they're not there, these folders are not there. Oh my God, where's all my stuff? That was Google. So what happened when he phoned Google? They tried to help him. When they couldn't help him, what do you think they said? It's only one word. Any idea?
Sorry.
Yeah. And that's it. They were sorry. Most cloud providers are sorry when their stuff fails. Of course they are. It's not good for business. But
Jason, while you're doing case studies, can I just ask you?
yeah.
Can you, given the Doyle Club composition members, generally are smaller organisations, SMEs, can you give some case study typical examples of where businesses fail when they're marketing?
I'm going to give,
Typical failures.
when we get to the end, I'll do real examples of what you should do. So you'll say to me, what should I do in this case? And I'll tell you. But real examples of what they're doing, they're failing, okay? They are, basically they're marketing to people who don't want to hear from them. They're not following the basic rules of GDPR, which is tell people what you're going to send them, then send them that and nothing else, and give them the opportunity to say no. What people are generally doing is saying, there's a tiny unsubscribe button at the bottom, but they're not telling them what we're going to do. So the only person I know since GDPR, one person's done it properly to me, they sent me an email saying I do this, this and this, and I'm going to be emailing you about it. I'm off the list if you don't want it. Because that's the main tenet of the GDPR. When you do start marketing to people, you can go and buy a database tomorrow. There's nothing wrong with doing all that, but you have to contact them within 30 days of receiving their data and say, this is what I'm going to do. Most people don't bother. Most people just buy the data or connect with me on LinkedIn, suck down my contact details, add me to their existing database, and send me the standard newsletter they send everyone else, as though I was always on their list. So they're damaging their reputation by not doing things right. They're inundating people, and they don't realise it's a bad idea. Because when I said to someone a couple of weeks ago when I did this, what is the biggest risk in marketing? And they said, giving the wrong message. But they're giving the wrong message from the start. So they're saying, I'm going to spam you, and I'm not going to follow any rules about doing it. And yeah, you can unsubscribe, but I'm going to make it really hard for you. And then they go and add you to, you can unsubscribe, but they haven't got the right software. They go and add you on LinkedIn again, scrape your email address. When someone connects with you on LinkedIn, they are allowed to market to you. But how they do it, I think, is a measure of how good the company is. So most of us will be using LinkedIn as software for marketing. We just need to use it in the right way. Is that making sense? And if you are marketing randomly and you're not sure who you're sending it to, if you get a message back from someone that could have something in it, and if you're not vigilant, you might. People that are out there are people out there just waiting for us to make a mistake. They're just waiting. Okay. So this is what we call their own loss. So remember what I was saying, most people talk about, I want insurance or I'm protection in case I get fined. The fine is probably the last thing that happens. The first thing that happens is his business was interrupted and he lost funds. So think about your own self as well as people who might take action against you if you lose your data. Think about what happens in your world. For me, and I'll mention it again later, most people are covering fines. They say I want protection in case of fines, but fines come after disruption, losing files, communication with clients, fixing systems, working out what your losses are, negotiating with the regulator, getting your clients back on board. There might be a fine after that. But it can only happen at the very end. So bring things forward. Okay. This is what I meant. So here is the actual factual website. This is where these banks say, we've signed up to this code, and if you get caught out by an authorised push payment scam, we'll refund you. And they don't. They just don't. We've seen it. Does anyone know anyone who's received a payment from a bank for this type of thing? Because I might be wrong, there might be one. Anyone?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
On that. So that example I just gave you earlier about contact line. So the client paid into that false bank account.
Yeah.
And so my contact is trying to work out whether they, whether the client is still responsible, or whether they can get whether they can get those funds reimbursed.
Okay. I'm not sure if you were here at the very beginning when I
No.
said, I need to talk to you one-to-one.
No.
I hope you don't mind.
No, it's fine.
But
I was late, it's fine.
working out who's responsible in a certain situation is based on the situation. So remember I talked about my client that sent the money and got it back from their insurer. That was taken from them by a criminal. But I suspect if they were meant to pay that to the right person, they would still owe that money. They would still have had to pay that money, which is why it's important they get it back from the insurer so they can pay it. But I'll talk to you about that because it depends on the circumstances. Okay, so remember this is the promise from the banks. When you get a push payment scam, we will protect you. And this is the letter they actually send out when you ask for it. Standard letter. This is the actual one. Where there's been no bank error. God, they told you about it they told you about it on a Saturday. They told you about Saturday and you could have stopped. You let the money go out at just after 9 on a Monday and you knew about it on a Saturday. How's that not making error?
Well, it don't work Saturdays. How would you expect them to do?
Believe you me, there are people with banks on Saturdays, but they're probably cleaning. Anyway, so, this is my point. I've deleted the name to protect the innocent, because he probably is innocent, bless him. So, does that leave you with questions? Because what I really want to do now is move on to Q&A and some real life examples, because I'm going to work on something Mark said to us earlier. So any questions about that? Any questions about what we've talked about? Anything?
Just on the cyber, the cloud security.
Cloud.
I've just joined a small SME on
Okay.
Monday.
Yeah.
Everything that they've got is in a Dropbox account, literally everything.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure if there's any backup or anything of that, so if that goes missing, literally the whole business is on now.
Yeah, so this gentleman, sorry, what's your name?
Martin.
Martin. So Martin's done two magic things in one sentence. There's a double problem with the cloud. Often people mistake it for a backup. It's not. It's storage. It's storage. Backup should be somewhere else. You're not storing your files as we used to in your local environment. You're storing them over here. The reason why we didn't like having paper in the past is we didn't have a backup. So when we first moved to computers, we used computers as a backup for paper. And we still resorted to paper most of the time. But what backup is, it's storage of stuff you don't keep yourself, you're storing it over there. But if they lose it, it's still your stuff. You've lost, your stuff is gone. So we say store it there and back it up there. So they have a backup to your storage. Don't assume your storage is a backup. The other thing, I can't find a slide right now, but we know because we've looked into all these agreements. While cloud providers are ubiquitous, they don't really care about us. I'm sorry to tell you that. They're there to make money. So in their terms and conditions, it says, if you have a problem, i.e. we lose your stuff, we're only liable up to £5,000. So that one is HubSpot, definitely £5,000. Clio, used often by lawyers, definitely £5,000. Most other cloud providers, it's not even £5,000. It says we'll pay you back what you paid us in the last 6 months. So imagine that architect, 240 grand to reinstate his files, and he gets back 6 months of subscriptions he paid. So, first thing, as soon as you go back, can we back up our storage, please? That's all. It will cost next to nothing.
Would you back it up to another cloud or a
Please.
another or a-
Please, because, and you just remind me of something else. Someone who didn't back up to another cloud, but who said they had, okay? So after I answer this, we'll get on to marketing and how to do it without risk. SPP, you remember, don't you? SPP, they're a major supplier of software to insurance brokerages. They own 25% of the market. 25% of insurance brokers in the UK use their software. Turn it on in the morning, there's all my client files. One morning, turned it on, it wasn't there. Started phoning them. They didn't have a call setting to assist. Of course they didn't. They didn't answer most of the calls. They buried their heads in the sand and only answered the calls from their biggest clients. They ignored the rest. After 2 weeks, most firms were back on after 2 weeks. But it took 2 weeks for smaller businesses to get their access back. Imagine 2 weeks without access to emails, client records. Imagine some client ringing up saying, I've got a new car, and they say, sorry, we can't swap it, you're going to have to go and buy a new policy from someone else. We can't even cancel this one and get the refund. That's what happened. That's the situation they're in because they're reliant on a cloud provider. It was good for us. We know that our inquiries literally in that 2 week period went up 25% and then dropped back down after. So we were getting their inquiries. The biggest challenge was that once they got put back online, we wanted to understand what happened. And what they had was they had their storage in Birmingham. People don't think there are data centres in Birmingham, but there are. And they had their backup and the first floor of the same building. So when the power went in that little local area, you know sometimes your lights go out and it comes back on. When the power went in this place in Birmingham, their storage went and their backup was in the same place. That went the same way. How can a company that owns 25% of the UK broking market, they've got them all as well, how can they have a storage and a backup in the same place? These companies do. I wish they were all good and well prepared and resilient, but to mine, we then moved to someone who has my storage is in Brighton and my backup is in Canada. So as soon as Brighton goes down, they flick a switch, and when I log back on, I'm logged into Canada. And we're confident that those two parts of the world won't have the same problem. Long answer to a good question. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, I'm going to move on a little bit. I think the stuff you really want is how do I market without this? So we'll talk about LinkedIn first, okay? LinkedIn is the biggest networking event in the world, but you can be there 24/7. And you get the opportunity to connect with who you like. So we say choose your connections carefully. So choose people who could become your client or could introduce you to your client. If you're going for the former, i.e. you've identified who these people are and they could be your clients, when you send them a message, do some differentiation. While I'm doing this, I'm going to go forward. Jason, can you come around and get the other slides if you haven't seen that? I'll just go through them. So differentiation. You saw those 3 messages I had in my inbox. They're all pretty same. First 2 are saying the same thing. Yeah. First 2 are saying the same thing. And they were saying, we're LinkedIn Googles or something like that. And they're both saying, one of them said, do you want like 9 leads a week on LinkedIn? The other one said, I've been working on LinkedIn for ages. But I get messages like that all the time. So it's heartbreaking for me that I've got all these really good people who want to break into my world, but they're not giving me any reason to. They're just giving me woolly stuff that I see from other people every day. So if you're going to send messages to people, you need to make an impact. The bit that they can see first. So he's asked a good question. See the top one, David Mitchell, he's asked a good question. Do you want to generate leads from LinkedIn? But who's going to say no to that? It's like, it's a bit obvious, isn't it? It doesn't give me anything. Of course I want to generate business off LinkedIn, but what am I going to get from you? I don't know. Next month, LinkedIn Lead Generation Professional. We are helping 9 professionals generate leads through LinkedIn. Oh, so you're doing the same as the other guy. Congratulations. So how am I going to choose from the two? I'm not. I have to get into a boring conversation with both of them about how brilliant they are. And then I'm going to have to try and work out if what they're telling me is true, and then I'm going to have to look at their recommendations, and I'm going to have to do all that stuff. Because I'm one of those people that does due diligence. But they could have made it really easy for me. And this guy, he almost got there. He almost got there. Maximise revenue and profits. Who doesn't want maximised revenue and profits? It's obvious, isn't it? We all want these things, but they're still not giving me what I want. So what I want in a message is I want to know exactly what I'm going to get. And none of these people do it. The other thing is, when I do read on, they still don't bother telling me what I'm going to get. They tell me stuff about them and their other 9 clients and how brilliant it is. What I want, and I hope you can see it right here, I want to know the hard benefits and the soft benefits of what I'm going to get from people. And when you're marketing, please do this. Everywhere that you market, do it. By the way, you can do it in your networking. Hard benefits are time and money. If he'd said, do you want to generate business through LinkedIn in the next 24 hours? That gives me more of a clue about what I'm going to get. If he says, do you want to generate 20% more business through LinkedIn? Then I've got a clue. I'm going to get 20% and I become more interested. So if when you're advertising or marketing, you put hard benefits like time and money into your opener, then people will know this is what I'm going to get. By the way, I'll give you an example, because otherwise it's hard to explain. We say to people, when they say, what do you do? We say, we reduce risk by 80% in 30 days. And people who want that will ask us about it. Now that was our best effort ever, okay? But it's still true. So it's somewhere between 60 and 80, and 30 days is the maximum. For some people it's 40. But when we say reduce risk by 80% in 30 days, they're like, right, do I want that? Do I want that? And they can make a decision. And people who do answer do become clients. Feelings. Soft benefits of feelings. So you could go on to say, I give people, so up here would be, do you want to generate business through LinkedIn and have more days off? Isn't that better? What am I going to get? What am I going to get after I've generated business through LinkedIn? What are you actually giving me? People are not giving us the opportunity to buy them because they're not telling us what we're going to get. So to give you an example, showing off again, when people say, what do? I say, I give business owners a good night's sleep. You're not allowed it right now. Okay? Because after they've reduced their risk by 80% in 30 days, they feel reassured and relaxed and comforted. So tell people the feeling you're going to give them as soon as you can. Now we don't necessarily put all of this in our profile because we don't want people stealing it. It's bloody good stuff. But when we're marketing, we make sure, right front and centre, we reduce the risk of being ignored by making sure we tell people or indicate this is what you're going to get. And the funny thing is, when people don't reply, it means they don't want to reduce their risk by 80% in 30 days. Like Brad, he's got an insurance that's totally fine. It's totally well arranged. So he doesn't need to deal with that. That wasn't what he responded to. He responded to something else. So make sure time and money. Tell them how long it's going to take and what they're going to get. And the four key things. One of these 4 should be, sorry about the handwriting, I'll explain, in your message. Okay? So when you're telling people what you're going to do for them, there's only 4 reasons, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm yet to be beaten on this, why I...
So I hope that was useful. Feel free to ask questions. A lot of the delegates actually waited until the end and asked us questions on a one-to-one basis. So feel free to do that by email or give us a call. Our contact details are all coming up on the next slide. And also, if you do forget everything that we've told you, please try and remember the 3 most important points. They will really benefit you over the long term. And also, we'd absolutely love to hear from you because we'd really love to help you if we can.